Hi, everybody. This is Alexine, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about annotating online. So, I do want to start by saying that I really prefer to annotate on the text itself. I like the feeling of my pen or my pencil sort of scratching along the page. Um, I like the way it looks when I've written all over it because I feel like I've really taken control over the text and really engaged with it completely once I've annotated it. I also like discovering something that I annotated many years ago and comparing my thoughts about it at that time to how maybe I think about it now. So I hope that I've sold you on annotation already, but if I haven't, maybe those are some other reasons to think about why you might want to do it. So even though I prefer to annotate on the paper itself, sometimes you do need to annotate online. And there are happily some really easy ways to do it. So I thought that I would make this little video to show you some of the ways that I annotate online and also to begin you on the reading of this essay. So the easiest way when you annotate online is to use the option of making comments on the text. So for my program, I do that by clicking on the review and then clicking on this new comment option. So for example, I might highlight the title, spend some time thinking about that, and I could make a comment about the title, where I could notice that he says that he's going to define happiness. And I might put a question mark after that. Like, I don't know, that feels kind of weird. I've never really thought about defining happiness. Um, I never thought about defining happiness. And since I already know that Eduardo Porter is an economics author for the New York Times, it seems really interesting to me that as someone who studies markets and the economy, that he's talking about happiness. So I might also have a question like, what is, or no, let me think, why would an economist write about happiness? And that could be a question that I might pick up later if I have to write an essay about this, or if my teacher at the beginning of class says, so does anyone have any questions? That might be the kind of question that I could bring to class because I think it would probably lead to a pretty interesting conversation. So before we go any farther, I wanted to remind you about the annotation strategies that I'm encouraging you to use. So the first one is connections, and that's where you would talk about ways that you feel connected or disconnected to what you're reading. So for example, if I start reading through this text, happiness is a slippery concept, a bundle of meanings with no precise, stable definition. Lots of thinkers have taken a shot at it. And then here's a quote from Gandhi: happiness is when what you think and what you do and what you are in harmony. I might think, oh, you know what, I can kind of relate to that because I remember times when I felt just very consistently myself. I didn't feel like I was lying or pretending. And that made me feel very comfortable in my skin. And that could be a way to understand happiness. I remember times when I felt like I could honestly be myself, and those were times when I felt very comfortable in my skin. Is that a kind of happiness? See, so now I've thrown in a question too. Okay, so the next kind would be key terms and concepts, right? So that might be terms that the author used that feel like the kinds of terms that are not maybe vocabulary words, but terms that I would want to understand. I haven't come across one of those yet. The next one would be questions, and actually I've already come up with 2 questions. And the last one would be vocabulary. So I've already highlighted in yellow here words that I would like you to define. And as you know, you only have to bring in a definition of 5 of them to have done your assignment, but I would encourage you to look up as many as you can because vocabulary words make you powerful and better writers. Okay, so let me keep going here. Happiness is when what you think and what you say and what you do are in harmony, proposed Gandhi. You know, if I didn't know who Gandhi was, I might want to look him up. Abraham Lincoln, former president, argues, most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. Well, that's sort of an interesting thing to think about. In other words, happiness has some element of choice to it. So that if you're unhappy, is that because you haven't decided to be happy? Do I agree with this? I don't know. Maybe I sort of agree with it. I mean, I think that sometimes we have a mindset that undermines our ability to be happy. But I also think that there have been times when I've been very unhappy where deciding to be happy wasn't necessarily going to make me any happier. So I don't know, if I wanted to continue to annotate, I might put a comment about that. Or if you want, maybe you could write a comment in response to what I'm just saying to this quote, because I think it's a very interesting and surprising way to think about happiness. Finally, Snoopy, okay, that's a dog, the beagle philosopher in Peanuts, took what was, to my mind, the most precise stab at the question. My life has no purpose, no direction, no aim, no meaning, and yet I'm happy. I can't figure it out. What am I doing right? This is an excellent question. What can we learn from Snoopy? I don't know. I'd be very curious to know what you guys think about this quote as well. I'm not going to say too much about it because I do want to give you a chance to think about it on your own, right? Or if you were going to pick 3 of these quotes to be the quote that is closest to your beliefs about happiness, which one would it be? That might be an interesting thing to think about. Okay, one more paragraph. And this paragraph, I don't know if you've noticed already, this paragraph is literally just a sentence. So just so you know, if I were this guy's editor, I might say, I'd like you to develop this paragraph a little more. It's not really okay to just have a 1-sentence paragraph. But since he's a successful writer already, he gets to, I guess, kind of break the rules a little bit. So most psychologists and economists, and remember, that's what he is. He's an economist who study happiness, agree that what they prefer to call subjective well-being. Well, that's interesting. He's put that in quotes. So that means that that's a term that people use in psychology and in economics when they're talking about happiness. So to me, that means that this is what we would call a key term, right? And that means that I might try to understand what this key term means, subjective well-being. So I know subjective has to do with how you experience something. So it's anything that happens that you have feelings about. Those feelings are what we would call subjective feelings. And I know well-being has to do with how you're doing, right? So to me, subjective well-being means something about how you think that you're doing, right? But if that doesn't feel like enough, one thing you could do would be to Google it, right? So Google this. I don't know, could be interesting. Okay. So anyway, subjective well-being comprises, that means is made up of 3 parts. Satisfaction, which means to capture how people judge their lives measured up against their aspirations. So satisfaction is like how satisfied you are with how your life is going compared to how you think your life should be going, right? Positive feelings like joy, okay? And the absence of negative feelings like anger. Okay, this is interesting. So happiness has 3 parts. Like one is how satisfied are you with your life? The second part is how many good feelings do you have? And the third part is how many bad feelings do you not have? It's kind of interesting. I feel like I would probably want to make a comment about this. Let me think about this. Which one do I feel like is the most important? I think to me, the most important one feels like it would be satisfaction. This feels like the most important of the 3 I'm just going to write. In my humble opinion. Just because, I do want to try to find connections with the text. I'm often happiest when I feel like I'm getting things done. Like kind of now. I kind of feel kind of happiness as I am engaging with this text. So I'm going to stop here. I hope that this has been helpful. And if you have any questions, bring them to class and we can talk about them. But what I'd like to do is see you continue to engage with and annotate this text, making sure that you have at least 1 comment per paragraph and that you have a combination of finding connections with the text, identifying key terms and concepts, asking questions, and of course looking up some vocabulary words.